Happy Father's Day to everyone out there who's a father, and to all the people who act as father figures in our lives and make our lives better. Father's Day is an interesting holiday for me because I don't have any kids, and I feel a little bit odd in that way because a lot of guys do. Some guys have so many kids that they don't take care of them, and it sort of bothers me because that's really what our society needs. Is they need the men who sire children to grow up and actually be dads. There's an entire website dedicated to fathers, fatherhood.gov, because the government, although it doesn't work very hard at it, does recognize that fathers matter. One of the things that's bothered me this morning is on social media there was a shout out to the father figures, the mentors, the uncles, the grandfathers, the other masculine figures in people's lives, and then somebody threw a shout out to single moms, and that's the ultimate virtue signaling for me because mothers already have a day, okay? And I've never seen anyone push to recognize single dads for Mother's Day because no real man would be like, yeah, I'm also my daughter's or my son's mom, because we know we're not. Years ago, there was a guy, 5 or 6 years ago, I was out for a walk on Father's Day, it must have been at night because it's way too hot usually on Father's Day in Vegas to go for a walk any other time of the day. And there's this guy, a little less than 3/4 of a mile from my house, who I'd seen and spoken with on several occasions, who stopped me to wish me a happy Father's Day and engage me in conversation. Over the course of the conversation, it came out that I don't have any kids, and after he had bragged about 4 kids that he has with 3 different women, 2 of whom he's never married, he actually had the audacity to criticize me for not being a dad and told me I needed to get out there and sow my oats. And I said, wait a minute, so you think you're a better man than I am because you've sired kids with women you didn't marry? Then that makes you a better man than me? So angry I was that I went out of my way to avoid walking by his house. I would go like an extra quarter mile out of my way so I wouldn't have to walk by if I saw that he was sitting outside, because I had no desire whatsoever to engage in conversation with him again. The audacity and the arrogance, presumption that having kids makes you a dad just really bothered me. And the fact that he didn't feel obligated to take care of them bothers me too. That being said, one of the things I wanted to address here is a growing movement among men to go their own way and to eschew marriage. And I'm no apologist for marriage. If you've read anything I've written on the internet, if you've watched other videos, if you're students of mine, they know that I look at it with a very skeptical eye and an air of caution, because I had a bad experience, and I was burnt badly. But there's this nonsensical notion out there. The red-pilled MGTOW community has 2 groups. The one that says we're just going to do our own thing, and to the most part I support that, understand it, and advocate it. And then there's the red pill attitude that it is winning in life to acquire money and ignore women and just prove that you're better than they am. Well, that's an arrogant and prideful attitude that I don't like. And the other side of that coin is many of those men will go out and they will not get into long-term relationships, but they will go out and engage in coitus with women. And I don't consider random anonymous hookups with women to be a winning proposition, because even if you don't manage to impregnate the women, what you are doing is you are damaging their psyche. Because when you are intimate with a person, and it doesn't have to be sexual, there is a bonding that occurs, and there's an emotional attachment. And a man who goes into a relationship without any desire or intention to make it long term, who goes through those motions, engages in those activities up to, including, and then beyond coitus, who then abandons a woman is not a winner, and he is not a man. He is a predator. So a lot of these people who describe themselves as red-pilled, men going their own way, emancipated men, are really just what we used to call players. And they go out and they use women to slake their lusts and then discard them and cast them aside. And then those women go out and say, oh, men are the same, they just want one thing. Well, have you dated all men? Because I can go without it, and I know lots of women I don't want to sleep with for any reason. I know lots of women I don't want to have relationships with of any kind. But I have some female friends, that more like close associates, with whom I enjoy the occasional conversation. And I don't have any desire to get in bed with them or to break their hearts. In fact, some of them have written to me and expressed their appreciation that I'm not like those other guys. Of course, they would never date me, but that's a non sequitur. It is not a winning prospect to have a society where children are born or raised without fathers. It is likewise not a winning prospect in society to have a large contingency of the male population that intentionally not just eschews marriage, but goes around playing games with the hearts of the women who might be desiring that. I'm not saying that all women who get attached to a guy have pure and altruistic motives. Many of them do look at men as a retirement plan. Many of them are looking for somebody to take care of them. I dated a girl for a week who, after we broke up and were talking once, one of the last times we spoke, said to me, I'm really hoping I can get married soon, have babies so I can let myself go. And I said, whoa, slow down. Don't ever tell a guy you're dating that, and you should really dispense with that attitude, because there is no man on the planet who is looking at a woman going, God, I can't wait till she has kids and stops taking care of herself. Because, like it or not, whatever women think, whatever men say, men are driven by looks, and they want the woman to be attractive. And that doesn't mean she has to, have six-pack abs and the latest in fashion, or be a 9 or a 10 on the scale, but she does need to be taking care of herself. It's interesting that some of the best and the worst advice for dating actually comes from women. The worst advice from women actually comes about getting a guy. The best advice from women is about why women can't keep one, from women who are trying to teach them how. In her book, The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands, which I don't know why I read, Laura Schlesinger writes about how if you are not taking care of yourself, you are reneging on a part of the marriage contract. Yes, when you have kids, your looks go. And as you age, your looks go. So no matter what, even if you don't have kids, then you're going to degrade over time. Entropy always increases unless acted upon by an outside source. It's why most people, although there are some exceptions, have to work out constantly in order to maintain any level of fitness, let alone be attractive. Because in some way they are breaking down. In some way they are getting worse. So back to Father's Day. The biological aspect of marriage can simply be summed into this. I teach biology at work as a professor. It's not the department I'm in, but I started in biology and moved to chemistry, and so basically ever since 2009, I've been teaching at least one biology class almost every semester, sometimes more than that. But one of the courses that I teach on a regular basis, we talk about the cell cycle and mitosis, cell division. And when we get to the end of it, I impress upon my students the notion, because eventually we're going to talk about genetics, that the entire purpose of a living cell is to make a copy of itself. We are not here to have boats and cabins and toys and to amass as much money as possible and go out on vacations and all this other mumbo-jumbo. We are a biological organism that is supposed to make a copy of itself and prepare that copy to survive. Last Sunday, no, it wasn't Sunday, Friday night, visited my parents because I had a bad day, and when I arrived, my dad was watching a nature documentary on PBS in Africa. And I remember it highlighted several families of organisms in Africa that they were watching with animatronics. And it was interesting to look at the animals. The three I remember are dingoes, some monkeys in a temple, and the other one was elephants. Okay, and these three groups it highlighted the relationship between the adults and the children, teaching them, training them, and caring for them. It was interesting to see because it's one of the rare times they've actually captured a new elephant taking its first steps, because they had this animatronic tortoise, and then watching when the dingoes, when the elephants went by the dingo family that they were also watching, and the dingoes went for the new baby elephant, how all of the other adults surrounded it like, you can't touch this. Okay, anyway. And the dingoes protected their young and got them into the holes under the ground, and then tried to distract the lioness as she was hunting and looking for the young. It was phenomenal, because the entire purpose of a biological organism is to raise up, to make copies, and then raise them up to take our place. It's why plants make flowers and fruit. The flowers are not because they need to feed the bees. It's to attract the bee, so the bee will move the pollen, so the pollen will fertilize the egg, so the egg can grow up in the fruit, so the flower can become a fruit, and then when the fruit falls off, the decaying fruit will fertilize the new egg, or the new seed, and grow a new plant, and so that life will continue. The purpose of life is to continue life. And without fathers, there is no life. Say what you want about genders and how many there are, but it must be two genetic donors. There are two parents, where one of them adds one part and one adds the other. And in our species, there is male and female. If you don't have a Y chromosome, you will differentiate physiologically female. If you have a Y chromosome, you will differentiate physiologically male. And without the two eggs do not fuse, two sperm do not fuse. Even if they could, they wouldn't survive, because there would be no X chromosome, and without no X chromosome, there's no life. So yes, mothers matter, because without no X chromosome, no life. And women have the X chromosome, and we do too, but the women are not self-fertile, and humans are not hermaphroditic, and humans do not have both genders at the same time and both parts without surgical alterations. So the divine feminine is important, and so is the divine masculine. And so when we look at attitudes about fathers, women who are strong and don't need no man, a society that is actually financially rewarding and supporting women who have sired a bunch of children and didn't choose a father figure who was going to stick around and care for the young, who then rely on the monetary donations of the herd. Because Democrats always talk about how it takes a village to raise a child, but they're not offering a village. They're offering a herd. It's a bunch of individuals who are tasked with raising some other organism's offspring. Or in some herds, like lions, there's only one male who impregnates a bunch of women. That's not a village, that's a harem. Okay? So their analogy breaks down when you remove it from humans. But to talk about that dads don't matter, that men don't matter, this whole bashing on males, men, and masculinity, and then trying to usurp the holiday by giving a shout out to all those single moms who are raising kids. I'm not saying that women aren't important, and I'm not saying that a single mom does not have a hard job. What I'm saying is that's not all there is to it, and that's not the whole story. And if we ignore men, if we denigrate men, how can we be anything but surprised to provide the means by which we suffer when we disincentivize males from being men? When we send a message that no men need apply, we don't need you, and then they go do their own thing and they go galt. They go out and they golf, they buy boats, they buy villas, they buy multiple cars, and the good ones then just ignore women, and the bad ones go out and mess with them. Dozens of them, hundreds of them. We used to look at those and call them philanderers, and we still should, because they're playing the field not because they want to be dads, not because they care about the women, but because they're selfish. And I am afraid that a lot of the men's independence movement is about pride. Do I know anybody that I want to have a family with? No. But I'm not against the proposition. I haven't been on a date in a long time. There is somebody that wants to set me up with someone, and I'm not holding my breath about it, but I'm following some good advice that I got a long time ago. And here's the advice I will give you. Enjoy and be honest. Be observant and patient. Most of all, be open. Because we're all looking for love. And some of the most superlative love that you can have here comes from a family. It comes from people who genuinely love you. And not all family is blood, because in order to have a family persist, you have to marry someone, or at least mate with someone who isn't your family, legally speaking at least. And then that draws you together. But that's not how it works anymore. People go out and have dalliances for whatever reason imaginable. And then some pukes among them, like this neighbor I have, go out and beat their chest and say, I'm a great guy because I got these kids, and you're a schlub because you don't have any. Well, I don't have any kids I didn't plan, and I don't have any kids out of wedlock. I'm glad that I can say that. I'm sad that I don't have any. One last anecdote, and then we'll close this up. For Father's Day in 2018, in my congregation, they announced during the final hour of church that, so we had our worship service, and then Sunday school, and then the final hour where the men get in a group and the women get in a group, and they announced that during that period, the women's group would be serving pies for the fathers. And I was sitting in the room as the men filed out to go get their pies, and the guy next to me says, aren't you going to go get some pie? And I said, it's for fathers. And he had a kid, and his kid was like 5 or 6 months old, and he said, well, come on, you can go. And I said, I'm not even married, so I'm not even a husband. And he said, well, if you don't come, I'll just eat your piece. And I said, okay, fine. So, because I wanted pie, I went in there, and one of the women serving pies was the mother of one of the girls in my class. And when I walked into the kitchen, she pointed at me and said, I'm glad you came. You deserve pie. You teach my daughter in Sunday school, and we often talk about what you say. And I asked my Sunday school class the next week about it, and they all agreed and decided, you're our Sunday school dad. I don't know exactly what that value has to them. Aside from, I know that 16 to 18-year-olds are looking for an adult figure for inspiration and direction who is not their parent. I wasn't friends with any of their parents. I didn't know any of their parents. Most of their parents were older than I was. And so I was another independent adult they could ask for advice or information who didn't have an ulterior motive. And I think they appreciated that. That it's the same thing that I remember looking at my grandparents for. My grandparents frequently would back up what my parents said, but I knew that they weren't as tied to the outcome as my parents because I didn't live with them, and because if I did total crappy decisions, it didn't reflect directly on them because it would reflect more on my parents than on them. And do you have to have kids to be a dad? Legally and biologically, yes, or to be a father. But just because you sire kids doesn't make you a father. Any idiot can spew seed, but it takes a real man to be a dad. Being a dad is hard work. I know. I have a great dad. He's not perfect. He's a good guy, though. And he cares about his kids, and he spends time with us. During this 100 days of lockdown, because my parents don't live that far away, my dad has been to my house for a couple hours a day, like 2 or 3 days a week the entire time, working on projects with me. Because he started in January remodeling this house, and so there were things that had to get done. So that, when they quarantined us all, I had a non-functional kitchen. Like, I had no cabinets, I had no sink, I didn't even have floor, I'd ripped all the flooring out, and my dad has come over to make sure that it was done well and was done expediently so that I could have a functional house and not have to suffer. I have a great dad. He loves me. Why do I know he loves me? Because when I was a small kid, and I'm talking about from the age of 8 to 12, I had severe migraines a lot of the time. I don't know why, because it sort of went away about 10 years ago, where I've had like 2 in the last, since I moved into this house, almost 9 years ago. And I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to do anything. They were debilitating migraines. My dad would come in, and he would massage my head, put water on my forehead, and help me to go to sleep. And I know, because I've made sacrifices for people I care about, that if my dad did not love me, there is no way in Hoboken he would have done that every night. My dad had other stuff to do. I didn't know. 8, 9, 10 years old, I had no concept of what my dad did all day long. And he had lots of responsibilities and burdens, but my dad made time for me, and he made sacrifices for me. And I know that if there was something he could do, he would do it. Last May, my dog died. I had trouble. My dad helped me dig the hole to bury him, because I couldn't. Just couldn't do it by myself. My dad has helped me. He's helped me to become what I am. He's helped me to stay alive. He's helped me to thrive. Not everything he's done or wanted or hoped has turned out. But when I got divorced, my dad was supportive. Not the way I wanted it to be, but I think the only way he knew how. And I appreciate it, because I'm in a much better place. If you have a good father, thank God. Thank your Heavenly Father that you have one. I'm going to. If you don't, I'm sorry, because a great dad is something that everybody should have. And that if once you've experienced what a great dad, what a great father is like, it enriches your life. I speak to lots of people who are dads about their kids. And there's a lot of tropes and cliches about fatherhood. But I do think that for most of them, what it does is that it gives them a way to become better men, because it provides someone for whom to sacrifice that they actually care about. Because we can say whatever we like about whatever pet organizations and causes we support, the effort and the donations, the time, the energy we put into them. I volunteer with the Forest Service on the weekends. Of course, not right now because they don't want us up there. But none of the people up there I run into are meaningful in the long term. Being a dad gives you a child. And a child is someone who is dependent on you. I mean, literally dependent on the mother, but then dependent on the parents to help make them successful so that they can perpetuate the cycle of life, make copies of themselves, and make those copies of themselves successful and happy. My dad has been happy to put forth elbow grease and the sweat of his brow to make this a place where I can be happy and peaceful and free. And so I look around at what we have built. It's still not finished yet, because I'm still working from home. I look around at it, and I told my mom, I said, now it has memories of Dad in it. So I have no intention of moving, no desire to move, because this is now a place that my dad helped me build. If you have a dad in your life, even if it's not your biological father, thank your Heavenly Father for it. Thank Him for it today. Enjoy it while you can, because all too often, everyone we love must die. And then all we have are the times that we have tried to be good sons or daughters, to be good parents, to be good siblings. Because what really matters is that 100 years from now, almost no one will remember who you are or what you did. What you are really leaving behind is your family. Mark Levin said that, in case you care. That's not an original thought. Happy Father's Day to all of you, especially to those I have loved and lost, who made my life better, and for the sacrifices they made, founding fathers who helped make this all possible. Godspeed, and good luck.